My name is Stephen Cadd, and I am an actor sometimes, and film director, singer, musician, music teacher, actually. So hearing has been a very, very important part of my life. I first noticed that there was something not quite right when, particularly in crowded places like a restaurant or a room with a lot of people talking or there's noise, and I was having a really hard time picking out the voice of the person talking to me. And I started to get a little worried. My family actually has a lot of deafness. It's kind of hereditary. My grandmother was completely deaf. Her sister was deaf, and I grew up around people who you had to raise your voice whenever you wanted to speak to them. And so I thought, it runs in the family, and maybe I need to get this checked out. We were living in Abu Dhabi at the time, and we had really good health insurance, and we were about ready to go back to the US where we didn't have health insurance. So we thought, let's get all the tests we can possibly get. And so there was a hearing audio specialist at the hospital, and so I went in for this audio test, and it was straightforward, simple. They play the different little pitches and tones in your ear and all that, and came back with the results, and it was very, very obvious, the fall off on the higher end of my hearing. And that pretty much matched with what I'd been experiencing, which was sound had become a little muffled, and particularly voices and higher pitched voices were harder for me to hear. So they confirmed that, and they said this is kind of normal for aging and all that. And I said, I'm still getting by. Okay, I'll check it. Maybe another year or so. I'll give it another check. But I didn't feel any urgency at that time. And then the doctor said something that really caught my attention. He said, "That's the mistake everyone makes. They wait too long to get hearing aids." The reason, of course, when you're aging, you sort of like, I don't know, rebel a little bit at the idea of being an old person who has to have hearing aids. And so people, can get stubborn about it, and I'm not going to do that. And I didn't want to be one of those, grouchy old guys who refused to admit that he was getting old. And I really wanted to catch this before it got worse. And this is what the doctor said. He said, if you wait, the sort of nerves, that connect from your ear to your brain, that those frequencies are not being they're not being used because you're not picking them up anymore, and they actually atrophy. They die off, and it becomes very difficult then if you try to reintroduce that with hearing aids. It's like it doesn't come back. And he said it's actually, you can retain the hearing you have left longer if you get hearing aids earlier. So that really caught my attention. So that's when I decided, I want to pursue this. I want to get hearing aids, and there's no question about it. The sharpness, the crispness of sound that I had kind of gotten used to over a period of time, it had kind of dulled, and when it came back, or when the hearing aids brought that crisp, sharp, clean sound of the higher frequencies, it was such a huge difference. I was able to hear things that I hadn't heard in a long time. Particularly music. Music, of course, has a full spectrum of sound, all the depths and the range, and particularly the high end. And losing that was, I didn't notice it until I got it back. And then when I started hearing that again, it's like sound had this it wasn't dull anymore. It was bright, and the word I keep using is crisp or sharp or clean. And I was able, especially voices, because a lot, and women's voices especially, they are kind of in that higher register, and suddenly it became just a lot easier to carry on conversations. And with the technology now, hearing aids, they're really amazing how they can focus in on specific sort of clusters of frequencies, so they can actually know what a human voice sounds like, and that band, those frequencies are the ones that are pushed a little forward, and it just makes carrying on conversations. My wife, I think, is especially happy because and she will notice it when I might not wear my hearing aids at one point, and she will look at me and go, "Are you wearing your hearing aids?" I go, "Oh, I forgot to put them on." She says, "I knew it. I knew it." So it does make a difference, both in having a wife who's not as irritated with me, but also just the enjoyment. Even when I take them off at night when I'm going to sleep, and as soon as they come off, there's this sort of muffledness that comes to the sound around me, and I am aware again how much I have been missing when I don't wear them. So that's kind of my story with hearing aids.